issues that dominated discussions was how the fiscal situation would look like in this election year and the possible monetary measures that should be put in place to check any budget overrun. There were also concerns about whether government would be prudent with its expenditure by sticking to the various spending targets outlined in the 2020 budget. But in all these, the biggest challenge was the impact of these things on the inflation rate and the economy at the end of this year and even the first quarter of 2021. The Ghana cedi's performance for the first quarter of this year also came up, and what should be the policy response to stabilize its current performance. Figures from some commercial banks suggest that the cedi has actually appreciated by a little over 1% against the dollar. The committee sought to examine the factors that are led to the local currency's performance in the first quarter of this year, which is normally described by many as the pressure period for the Ghana cedi. The Monetary Policy Committee, which is chaired by the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, will meet journalists on Friday to give their verdict on the economy and how it has fared so far and announce a new policy rate which will actually impact on the cost of credit in the country. The rate currently stands at 16% after it was maintained again by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana. Some policy analysts and bankers that Joy Business has engaged are all pointing to the policy rate being kept at 16%.
Now, Ghana's business community has been urged to comply with the recent Companies Registration Act. Speaking at an orientation workshop for members, Chief Operations Officer for the Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Frederick Amarko, highlighted the need to use the act as a stepping stone to improve corporate governance. There's more in this report.
Registrar General's Department, in consultation with stakeholders, has abolished the key requirement binding business registrations. What this means is that businesses will now be handed a one-time permit from the department to operate. Speaking at the new Company Registration Act workshop organized by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Chief Operations Officer of the Chamber, Frederick Amoako, charged businesses to adjust to the new act for effective operations.
This sensitization and capacity building will help deepen the understanding of businesses and keep them abreast with the new Company Registration Act.
Per the new regime, an application for incorporation shall include a statutory declaration by each proposed director indicating that within the preceding 5 years they have not been charged with or convicted of a criminal offense. Here's a representative of the Registrar General, Jemima Owari.
Under the new Act, Act 992, we see it as an opportunity to strengthen the regulatory regime for companies, and it is forward-looking.
In effect, once the registration process involving a business is complete, a company can proceed to do business in the country. The move, according to the department, is to simplify the registration process.
Now, Board Chairman for the Ghana Revenue Authority, Professor Stephen Adey, has warned that revenue officials found guilty of mishandling state funds will be made to face the law. He says the authority has declared 2020 as a zero tolerance for corruption and that all efforts are being made to ensure the 55 billion cedi revenue target is met. Professor Adey gave the warning at a Thanksgiving ceremony by the GRA in Accra. Here's more in this report.
Since 2015, the Ghana Revenue Authority has struggled to meet its target, except for last year when it exceeded the target by more than 10%. Following this performance, staff of the GRA says this achievement is worth celebrating with a Thanksgiving service. Board Chairman Stephen Adey cautioned corrupt staff will face prosecution.
So don't let anybody come to my house, and we know that we cannot police everybody, but we would practice at the board level zero tolerance for corruption, so that when we catch you, we won't allow you to stand at the place to be investigated. You'll be indicted at once. You'll be at home. When we investigate and you are right, you will have all your rights restored. But we won't just, we are not going to accept whether it's the union says these other things. When our law says that you are not guilty unless proven, but we are not going to let you sit at a place where we suspect you are going to continue your actions. When we find you right, will be bought.
Minister of Finance Ken Oforiatta charged the GRA to double up efforts in meeting the 2020 revenue target.
Change the policies to ensure more effectiveness. We need to digitalize to ensure that everybody can pay and pay easily, you know. And it can't be right that I come to pay taxes and somebody is gone for lunch. It can't be. It just can't be right. I can't understand that. So we need to ensure that there's always a sense of coverage, a sense of care, because Ghanaians are our clients, and we deeply need to respect people to be able to do that. So we hope that this year also there will be a recalibration, a transformation of our ethics and values and a sense of professionalism, because that really will make the difference in what we do.
The Commissioner General, Amishadai Owusu Amwa, praised the staff and management for their hard work.
Now, the Bank of Ghana recently introduced some new cedi denominations. The 200, 100 and 2 cedi coins went into circulation in November 2019. According to the Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, the BOG will ensure a rigorous campaign to educate the public on the usage. My colleague Alberta Bisiu has been speaking with some traders on how conversant they are with the new cedi denominations.
This money, I don't like it at all. If it is fake, how am I going to know? Me, I don't know that whether it's fake or not. Sometimes they will give it to different people. They will not change because they are afraid whether it's fake. They don't know. It's a new money. They don't know whether it's new, it's fake or what. They don't know. So this money, in fact, if they can do something about it, you will be happy.
I don't find it at all. I don't even see some before. The meaning you are oil. What is this? This is oil. Or anointing oil.
They are the features that will make you identify the money.
Oh, thank you. I've never seen some. I haven't seen some before.
When they say sikanichi, when umwa, nama hutri num, sinu ya chua 2020 and some men say when yakatafiki.
I can identify the authenticity of the money by the image of the president's staff in the 200 cedi note. The inscription of 2020 in the note is also an indication. But it will be very difficult for me to identify a counterfeit currency if I have a lot of customers around me.
I cannot tell if the money is a counterfeit currency or not. I can only identify its authenticity after it has been used for a longer period.
It is easy to identify a fake cedi note. Any new note has a thick texture as compared to the fake note. In order to identify a genuine note from the counterfeit, I lift it up and look out for the cocoa and the image of the human head in the note.
Now, away from that, in the coming days, marketing-oriented companies and professionals engaged in unethical behaviors could risk being named and shamed. This is because the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana, CIMG, says it has instituted a mechanism to check service quality standards among these professionals. The national president of the CIMG, Dr. Daniel Kasati, spoke with Joy Business at the maiden edition of the Chief Marketing Officers Forum organized here in Accra. Bismarck Ausa has more.
Gone are the days when we were at each other's throats to trying to outdo each other.
The maiden edition of the CMO's Forum, organized by the Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana, brought together chief marketing officers of various organizations and other marketing professionals to network and share ideas on best practices within the marketing space. Speaking to Joy Business, National President of the CIMG, Dr. Daniel Kasati, said the service quality standards have become necessary in order to improve sales and marketing delivery in the country.
We are vigorously pursuing the setting of the service quality standards for selected service industries. I mentioned that we are starting with banking. We will be doing insurance general. We will be doing insurance life. We will be doing eventually something for business schools in Ghana. If anybody says anywhere around the globe, you should be able to go on a website and to tell which business school in Ghana delivers the best, service quality and get the results. These are the things that we are going to pursue in the short to medium term.
One of the main speakers at the event and managing partner at Superclass Ghana Limited, Adam Sule, has called for close collaboration among marketing professionals and other stakeholders.
We definitely have some difficulties which are quite true, and our marketers are trained in a way to get the economy out of some of these problems. I think it's to do with collaboration, so marketers will have to collaborate with other actors in the industry to make sure that we can leverage what we have as a country. What we are not doing is I don't think we are networking enough. And also the idea that sometimes it takes time for some of these things to come up. I mean, it's not a magic wand. You just don't swing it and you get it fixed. It takes time and you have to build it.
The CIMG looks forward to organizing the Chief Marketing Officers Forum every year. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
If you're watching the Marketplace live with me, Emmanuel Boaji Riafi. Now, fast-moving consumer goods firm Unilever Ghana is said to be facing some serious challenges. The company is said to have registered a huge loss of 141 million cedis last year. This is against a profit of 59 million Ghana cedis in 2018. Now, as a result of the loss, its basic earnings per share for 2019 was a loss of 2 cedis 26 pesos per share as against 3 cedis 5 pesos per share gain in 2018. Operating loss margin was 51.7% as against a profit of 69.7% also in 2018. Researcher Philip Namfuri joins me to take a look at some financials of Unilever Ghana and what could be the possible causes of the company's predicament. You're welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
All right. No, so Unilever has been, posting impressive performance over the previous years, but unfortunately, management is putting the blame on the fact that they are facing unfair trade practices. What could this be a reason or a cause for this predicament?
Yeah, Emmanuel, I remember the last quarter of the third quarter of 2019 when Unilever released their third quarter financials. Management did mention that their operating environment is becoming a bit difficult, and you would recollect that just yesterday, a story on Unilever Nigeria was also posted on my journal line on the business page, and we saw that some of the reasons were the influx of cheaper alternatives as to what Unilever produces. If you look at the Ghanaian economy or the Ghanaian markets, you can see a similar issue here. Although I must state that these are unaudited financial statements without the full benefit of an audit of the footnotes to the numbers, I'll be a bit circumspect in my comments, but I can just see a general or based on anecdotal evidence, some of these things affecting the Ghanaian market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, could it also not be because, Unilever has enjoyed, so to speak, monopoly for some time, if not monopoly at all, they've dominated the market for a long time. So because we have other alternatives coming in place, they're beginning to bear the brunt of this particular situation?
That's a possibility. Every business at some point faces certain headwinds, and I always use the Kodak story, and Kodak didn't flop out or collapse because of maybe poor financials. It was the fact that they failed to innovate at a time where everybody was heading in a particular direction. That was the digital direction. So as a company, headwinds will come, but it's up to management, board, directors, etc., to ensure that they come out of these challenges and make sure that they reposition themselves in a better way to ensure that their businesses remain a going concern.
All right, so the data that they've posted out indicates that the cost of sales in 2019 reduced by 17%, with revenue which went down by over 40%, as well as revenue in 2019. What does this mean?
Okay, so essentially from the sale of their goods, what they made from 2018 to 2019, they made less in terms of revenue in 2019. However, their cost of sales in comparison to 2018 reduced. However, revenue fell by a greater percentage, like you mentioned, 46 versus 17%. But if you look at their expenses also, certain line items increased. And one that I would like to highlight is the impairment on trade receivables. These are the goods that they're supposed to receive. Okay. So maybe they have some items they're supposed to collect on, and maybe for one or two reasons they can't. These are some of the reasons that were affected. Another thing I saw in the financials was the finance costs, and these are maybe facilities, loans that they've taken and they're supposed to service. In 2018, they were doing about 3 million of that, 3.4 million, 3.3 million, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
And in 2019, they're doing about 10.9 million. So in terms of what you have to yourself, your operating profits, it continues to erode because you are going to use a lot of it to service loans and other
Exactly. But since we mentioned these two items, cost of sales and revenue. Now, revenue, does it, relate sales? And then cost of sales, what does it mean exactly?
Cost of sales, essentially, it should just looks at how Unilever is spending on. Let me put it this way: you have this phone in front of you. You want to ensure that this phone is sold.
Okay.
You have to maybe take a taxi,
advertise it,
or take an Uber, advertise it whatsoever. That's the cost of selling this item. So what Unilever has to do in order to sell their goods is their cost of sales.
Okay.
So from the sale of these goods, then they get their revenue. What you have to do as a manufacturing company like this is to try and beat down your cost of sales so that you prop up your revenue numbers. And you can see that in there, they more or less had to increase their distribution expenses from 17 million to about 26 million. Distribution expenses comes from how to move from the factory to this point of sale or that point of sale. So you realize that that cost there has gone up. It should have been coming down, but you see that it's gone up. Brand and marketing expenses also, however, that one has reduced from about 39 million to 29 million. You look at administrative expenses also, I beg your pardon, from about 67 million to about 70 million. Not too much of an increase there. But the main concern came from the impairment on trade receivables and then the finance costs. These are the two things that...
All right, so I'll come back to you, but we know that Unilever is also one of the most impressive equities on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
True.
I've been joined on the Skype by Head of Research of Data Bank, Alex Boahin, to tell us actually whether this particular situation is impacting the performance of Unilever equities on the Ghana market. You're welcome to the marketplace.
Yes, well, since the result was released, we haven't seen any movement in the share price. Yeah, but likely we are likely to see that maybe in the coming days because of this disappointing result. But that said, I should also highlight that last quarter last year, the company actually warned investors ahead of this performance. So I think the market is aware, and the market expected a result of this, but not at this worst, no.
All right, so in times like these, what goes into the minds of investors, especially those who have or who are already patronizing, the equities?
First, I think it depends on the long-term view of the company. Some investors may not be patient enough. They would likely sell off their investment in Unilever and go away. But if you look at the consumer story, Ghana generally is price positive. Middle class is growing. Consumer demand is actually picking up. So we think, given Unilever's nature, they will be able to weather this in the coming years.
So what is the outlook? Is the price still going for 16, price per share going for 16 cedis 40 pesos? And what is the outlook in the next few weeks?
Yeah, but like I mentioned, the market actually expected this, that the company will lose. But this is worse than expected, though. So in the coming days, we are likely to see some negative movement in the share price.
All right. Now, since we're still talking about the stock market performance, I don't know whether this, coronavirus scare is having any impact on the market activities as it is now.
Well, no. No. I know on the global market, it shook the global market on Tuesday and to some extent on last Wednesday. That's yesterday, but our market is not efficient as advanced markets. So development like this not reflect in share prices immediately. Yeah. So even yesterday, we saw some movement in the market, that cannot be linked to what is happening advanced markets or
All right, so it's a Thursday, and definitely tomorrow the market will close for the week. Any outlook before it closes?
We are seeing positive signs. Total Petroleum released their financial results yesterday, posted very strong stability. I mean, profit went up quite significantly. We expect the banks to also post good results for last year. So generally, the market is quite positive, and we have share prices in tandem with the good results that will come.
All right, many thanks for that update. Alex Boahen is head of research for DataBank. Back to studio. So, what exactly should Unilever be doing now to position itself to get the right?
Like Mr. Boahen was saying, they can weather the storm. They already undertook some restructuring, and it reflects in their financials. You see a little line item that talks about restructuring cost. Over the time, that cost has been coming down. I'm sure management, and again, they mentioned in this release of their unaudited results that they still have a positive outlook on the business as a whole, as a going concern. So we will just keep our eyes peeled, and we'll see how best they can survive in the midst of an influx of different types of goods in the market.
Do you foresee, as part of the restructuring exercise, a cut down in the number of staff?
It won't be out of place, Emmanuel. It won't be out of place. I mean, companies make different moves, even on an international level. By hearing of several job cuts and bonuses, these are always companies try to keep afloat. So it won't be out of place to see this happening. But I want us to keep our eyes peeled and see how exactly it will pan out in the coming quarters.
Now, in the face of extreme competition, like they're saying, unfair trade practices, I mean, how do they get out of this? Because whether you like it or not, these new alternatives are coming out every now and then. And how do they weather the storm, maybe, so to speak?
This will be quite difficult, because this is a time where taste and preferences of consumers have changed over the years. When we're used to one thing, if you walk into a store and you pick your toothpaste, you are sure picking Pepsodent. But now things are changing. Everybody's going on different things, Aquafresh, Colgate, and different types of goods they produce. So the market will continue to allow some of these things to enter. What we must do as a country is to look at how we can protect some of these companies and see how best influx of goods that don't come in through the right channels can cease. Once things are coming in through the right channels, I don't think there's a problem. If we want to go the way of countries like Nigeria, where we ban certain imports and allow companies within shorts to do them all, we can take a look at it. But some would disagree with such a motive. So I'll just advise that we keep our eyes peeled. The year has just begun. We have done about 1 month so far. Let's see what the first quarter of Unilever's results will be like for 2020. And
like we always say, there is indeed light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you very much for that update. Philip Namfuri is our researcher for Joy Business. Now, Ghana has joined the new transit monitoring system expected to be implemented by countries in the West African sub-region to help prevent diversion of transit goods. The new system, which is expected in March this year, will boost the efficiency of customs officials in member countries to monitor and get the necessary revenue from goods in transit. Commissioner of Customs, Colonel Kweju Damwa, disclosed this to Joy Business after a short ceremony to take over a facility built by the Danish government to enhance security at the country's entry points.
For now, before the end of the year, you mentioned specifically transit. In the case of transit, we were, as of December, operating around 98.5% of efficiency, which means that if there are any risks of losing something out of transit, it is now less than 2%. And that's, we are trying to make sure that we have 100% guarantee of all transit leaving our country and safely arriving in the destination countries. Now, there is also some good news. At the ECOWAS level, ago, I was in Abuja for a conference of commissioners of customs. A new system has been developed, and it is going to be rolled out by all ECOWAS countries. And that system has a specific model for transit. And what that seeks to do is that the landlocked countries and then the countries along the coast having the port facilities are all going to be hooked on this. So as soon as a declaration is made, a transit movement, the vehicle and everything is done, straight away, automatically, all the countries hooked to that system are aware of the movement of this consignment. So the originating country as well as the destination country are aware of the movement of a particular consignment from point A through whichever port. So, and they see it real and live. So we are supposed to be hooked to it by the end of March this year. It was actually as a result of our transition from one system to the other. We want a system that starts and ends without several service providers doing overlapping and interdependent processes. So once that is put in place, in addition to our own efforts of trying to make sure that everything is now digital, I'm sure that issues about suspense regimes and in particular transit will be attended to. A single port rule? The single port rule is slightly different. The single port rule was going to be a project between selected countries.
Now, internet service provider Surfline says it is expanding beyond the current 3 regions within which it operates. Commercial Director of Surfline Communications, David Afungani, told Joy Business the move is part of the company's 2020 agenda to increase internet penetration.
Currently, Surfline's 4G LTE service covers Accra, Ashiam and Tema, Takoradi, Pokwasi Hills, and few other areas in the eastern parts. However, according to the Commercial Director for Surfline Communications, David Afugani, plans to expand its coverage across the country has already begun.
In 2020, we have aggressive, growth plans, and what we want to do is to be able to cover the economic triangle of, Greater Accra, Ashanti, and Western together. Give them blanket coverage to ensure that we are able to cover as more territory and population as possible. We have already started towards the end of last year. We just entered Kaswa all the way to Budumburam to the west. So gradually we are moving towards ensuring that we cover central region.
David Afugani was speaking at an event to launch 2020 as the Year of the Customer. The year-long event will reward customers with vouchers from Surfline partners to boost customer loyalty.
And that'll be it for the marketplace today. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Have a good afternoon.